going to be handling the Gray Wolf webinar for us today. Go ahead, Rick, take it away.
Sounds great. All right, let me show my screen. Let's see. I don't have presentation, so I'll make myself presenter.
I just did.
Yep, and I'm going to show my screen. And let's make sure everybody can see it. Okay, looks like we're in good shape. First of all, thank you for taking the time out of your day today. I really appreciate it. It's been a while since I've had an opportunity to be on a webinar with TUG, and I appreciate that opportunity. Those of you on the call, and I do see the list, I know quite a few of you, so feel free to interject and give some input on things as we're going through this, through the questions or chat. Gary's going to probably do it all at the end, but if there's something really, really important, feel free to interrupt and we can do that. We're going to talk about integration, and what we're really going to talk about is how you integrate with SX. What are the pieces and parts to it? How do we make it work? And really kind of go through what's involved in integrating with SX. And I'm also going to talk a little bit more about why, and that's part of the second step is the applications. What I want to talk through, and some of this may be a little bit redundant for some of you, maybe a little bit boring, but I'm assuming to have to level set everybody, I'm going to talk about what some of the integration options are out there. But before I do that, I want to do a quick poll to ask what you guys are currently using. So I'm going to launch that poll, and the poll should be open. If you guys would do me a favor. Now, we did not get the poll to be able to work where you could do multiple answers, and I'm well aware that some of you have more than one answer to this. But do me a favor and pick the one that you use the most, whether you use it internally for your own applications or if you're doing it with third-party applications. I'd like to know the audience because that'll help me target how I make the presentation for you, especially as I'm going through what the options are. It looks like we've got half of you voting. I'm going to get to at least a few more. I'm going to give it a few more minutes. All right, we're up to about 65%. If you guys could vote for me real quick, and that would give me at least something to, and I will share the results of this poll after I close it. So we're up to about 75%. We can get a couple more. I'd like to get up to about 80. Okay, it looks like we're getting close. All right, so I'm not taking up a lot of time. I think we're going to be in pretty good shape on this. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll, and I'm going to share it with you so that you can actually see the results of the poll. Come on, show up on your screen.
I see it.
There it goes. Okay. It looks like the lion's share of you, almost half of you, are using the N4 APIs. Thank you for those that are using our APIs. I appreciate that. I'm kind of surprised, quite honestly, by two things. I'm surprised at how large it is with the other, and I'm assuming the other is more than none than it is the other. So I'm making that assumption. I'm not sure what others there would be. If you could do me a favor, if you are an other, if you could just throw out there under the chat or under questions which one that other would be, and I can take a look at that as going on. But the other surprising part is as much as N4 is pushing ION, I'm kind of surprised that only 3% of you are using ION at this point. So that gives me a pretty good feel off of that poll of what you're using, and that'll help me from talking about the integration options. I also do want to then talk about, okay, in and of itself, all these different pieces of integration do nothing. What are the applications? And I'm going to talk about the ones we have, as well as maybe talk about futures, as maybe some other applications out there using things. And then I'm going to talk about the requirements and pricing. Let's call a spade a spade. This is a presentation that I'm trying to sell our wares. So I am going to talk about what it is, what the products are, what the pricing is, those kinds of pieces and parts I'm going to talk about. Before I get too far, those of you do know me, do know the company, but I do want to go real quick, and you can get this all from our website. But we're actually very proud of the fact that we were founded in 1992, and we hit this year as our 25th anniversary. That's quite, to me, an accomplishment. They had 25 years of staying in business through the dot-bomb era, through the Great Recession, through everything else that's gone on. So I'm pretty proud of the fact that we've been in business for 25 years now. We do focus on wholesale distributors. We just picked up the Profit 21 line, as well as obviously all of you on the SX. Our focus is in really three areas. We focus on integration, subscription-based applications, and customization. You can go into more detail on our website. We're going to focus on the integration and the subscription-based applications today, and of that, probably it's going to be an 80-20 rule. We're going to focus on the integration, which are the APIs and web services. With that being said, let's talk about some of the integration options that are out there. The first piece I want to talk about and kind of level set everybody, and I know this is kind of boring because most of you probably already know it, but ODBC, Open Database Connectivity, has been around for a long time, and this is a quick definition of it. And the reason why I put that out there is because what it really is it's really, the key word there is accessing database management systems. It's not really going to be doing much with writing, even though yes, you can do that with ODBC, especially if you use something like a Microsoft Access Tools or front end. But the majority of ODBC was designed for the concept of reading things. And if you take that a little bit further, you look in 1992, it came out with ODBC 1.0. You can see that Microsoft came out with the MDAC, which is Microsoft Data Access Component, back in 1.0 in 1996. And then you have the Java database connectivity, which is the primary way that a lot of people go into Progress, is through the JDBC concept, which came out in 1997. But if you look at this, there really hasn't been much enhancements to it since that time frame. The next major breakage or breakout of that technology was this concept of an ESB, or an Enterprise Service Bus. And I'm not going to read this to you. You guys can read just as much as I can. But this was the next major phase that came about, was this whole concept of a bus. And it's really kind of older technology, because if you look at the dates on this, it started in 1986 when a software company, I'm not even sure how you pronounce it, I think it's Technectron, something like that. They started. Then you had technologies coming out. We got involved with BizTalk back in 2000, and we were doing it in the EDI world. And Microsoft didn't even know how to spell EDI, and we did BizTalk as an architecture for about 3 or 4 years, from 2000 to about 2003, 2004. And then we saw there's some limitations. And if you notice on here, and I want to kind of highlight it, that in 2012, you'll see that Infor released ION in that time frame. So about 5 years ago is when Infor released it, and that's really kind of late to the game. And this is just my opinion, but a lot of it, I think, came from the idea that Infor wanted to compete with the Oracle world. And if you look in 2008, they came out with their SOA suite with the service bus. And I think they were coming into it with the idea that they wanted to have the same kind of technology available, and they came to that marketplace in 2012. And it was supposed to be the end-all that beats all. And if you're interested, there's a white paper out on our website about why I think ION versus APIs has some disadvantages to it. So I want to talk about APIs now, and this is the cornerstone of what I'm going to be focusing on today, is the concept of an application programming interface. And again, you can read this just as well as I do, but the key to it is it's in order to support the building of applications. It's truly what it's supposed to be, is an application interface that you do through programming. And if we look at the second part of this, is the concept of web services. And if you look at this definition, and there's actually out there on the web, you'll hear the definition is almost called a web API. There's a slight difference to what web services are versus just straight APIs. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about. We're going to focus on the concept of what are APIs, what are web services, take it down to the base level, why do they exist, how do they come about, and some of those pieces. So let's talk about the history of APIs. And what we're looking at here is that basically in 2000 the API split from SOA, which is the services-oriented architecture, and the biggest force to that was Salesforce.com. That's when they offered their APIs in that world, because they were a software as a service. Back in those days it was called an ASP, an application as a service provider. And we saw the APIs were the way to go. And if you'll see on here, in 2005 we started offering our own set of APIs in the SX world. We now offer APIs for the Profit 21 world as well, but we started writing our own set of APIs in 2005, so we've been doing it for over 10 years, 12 years we've been doing it, and our first customer came about in 2006. So we've got quite a bit of experience and water under the bridge that we've been working on in the API world, and you can see that that's the future. Facebook, Twitter, Google, Amazon, and Instagram, they're all coming out with a set of APIs, and if you follow it far enough and jump into now Forrester Research, which, if you don't know this, I assume you do, Forrester Research, Gartner Group, those are the major industry pundits in the technology world. Back in 2015, what they said was that APIs are perhaps the most critical technology in digital business design. And I'm going to take that one more step further, and there's actually what they call the Forrester Wave, and they came out with this grouping of API management solutions. And if you follow it enough, there are software companies out there that provide API management for companies like Grey Wolf, and they have their Forrester Wave that they came out. This is brand new as of the fourth quarter of last year. And if you read the few things I've just taken, as I put this on here on purpose because this is a direct copy, a screenshot, direct from the Forrester Wave article, and it talks about that APIs create business agility, fosters the rapid business reconfiguration necessary for unknown future constant change. And then there's a second bullet in there. It's actually the first one in there. It says enable mobile apps, create integrated digital ecosystems across customers and partners, benefit from the innovations of digital disruptors and so forth. Well, what does that all mean? That means that basically they're saying is that APIs are going to become the glue to technology as time goes on. And I'm not going to ask you to read this one again. I took a screenshot from the article, and it comes up with three bullet points, and I'm going to go through those and summarize those now. And because this is kind of important as you look at different solutions, and like we talked about, 50% of you using the Infor APIs. So I'm not going to try to, I was taught by IBM when I worked there, you don't disparage, so I'm not going to disparage, but I'm going to try to talk about what we do that might be different on the way that Infor does their APIs versus the way Grey Wolf does the APIs. And the first rule that they put out there was you need to, the companies like Grey Wolf need to manage our APIs as if they are a product. We need to do product management with that. And I'm going to show you how we do some of that and some of the naming conventions and some of the naming structures and how we treat our set of APIs in and of themselves as a product. They're not a checkoff on the RFP to say, do you have APIs? And oh yes, we have them. No, these are a cornerstone. They are a critical success factor to Grey Wolf, and they have been since 2005. The second bullet point was that API providers must fulfill 4 critical tasks. 1, it needs to be easy for API users, guys like you, or for that matter, other software companies that are writing integration. It has to be easier for them to access and understand how to use the available APIs. I'm going to show you some of that. I'm not going to get too propeller head, but I'm going to show you some of that. Then we're going to talk about that we need to know and track who's using the APIs, and that's actually dovetails, if you read the article, dovetails in the third bullet point. We need to communicate with API users. We need to tell you when the APIs are changing and what we're doing with that, and we need to be able to have support to solve the problems when they arise. And I would wager to bet that we are light years ahead of most of the other software providers that provide APIs. Then the third bullet point is that an API key is the first element, and we'll talk a little bit more about an API key, but we use an API key to actually track who's using it and make that available to you so that you can see how are we using it, as well as keep quotas and rate limits in place. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, about the concept of denial of service. Now, everything we've been talking about so far is the concept of an API. The difference between that and web services I'm going to try to explain to you, but basically the APIs sit on your server and they expose SX to something. And then a web API, or more importantly web services, are the concept of serving up those APIs so that they can be consumed by some sort of application. So in and of themselves, APIs and web services do absolutely nothing. In other words, you cannot just go and say, I'm going to go do something with a set of APIs. You have to write, and we've coined the term called an adapter. You have to write an adapter that consume the API or consume the web service to make sure that it's being used for some sort of an application. Well, let's do a quick little demo on this. So I'm going to, first of all, bring over our website so that you can actually see we are very transparent in a lot of this. You're going to be able to see a lot of this yourself. Well, the first thing I want to do is I want to talk about what have we got and what exists out there. So if you go to our website and go to API Web Services and then click on SX.enterprise, you're going to see here's that white paper I was talking about, but more importantly, and we'll come back to the pricing at the end, but they are on the website. I'm going to show you now what the listing is. These are all of the APIs that are available to you as a pool approach. I'm going to say that again. You don't buy per API. You buy all of the APIs as a pool. And I think you can be very surprised at the pricing structure of our APIs. But this is a full list. We've broken our APIs out into groupings by name. So you have general, you have items, you then have purchasing, sales, and then down at the bottom we do have some for warehouse transfer. Then we've taken the naming structure, and for those of you that are propeller heads, we do follow the REST technology, which for APIs, but we don't use the naming structure that REST does. Again, let's come back to that first or the second rule 1A, which was it has to be easy to understand. We don't like the idea of the naming structure, nor did we back in 2005. We wanted the naming structure to use somewhat of the SQL, which is not just Microsoft, but it's the structured query language naming structure. So for example, if we go down to, say, items product. So we have items product, and we can have then an insert, we can have a list, we can have a select, we can have an update, and we basically use that concept. So we have an items, what are we doing it to, and then what are we doing to it. So for example, we have items warehouse list, items warehouse product, insert warehouse product select, and it's pretty straightforward then of what each of those pieces and parts would do. Now if I go look down at, say, sales customer select, for argument's sake, so I'm going to look at this one. We have 3 types of ways that you can consume this, and again, unless you're propeller head, you don't care about this, so I don't want to lose you on this one, but for those that are propeller heads, you do want to know this. We do have the WSDL, which is the web service definition language. We have XML, and we have JSON, which is the Java approach. If you look at the WSDL, and again, this is XML looking like, but what's important here for those of you that aren't real technical, what we do is we have 3 input parameters. In this case, it's going to be company number, customer number, and by the way, we've left our naming structure and the formatting and the exact name are the same as the data dictionary of SX. And then you have this concept called an API key. This is that piece that was required. We did this from the very beginning. By the way, what we're looking at here is a web service. So if you look at the URL up here, it's GWWS for Grey Wolf Web Service. The Grey Wolf Web Service is what calls the APIs. The APIs actually reside on your SX box, and then you call this web service to consume it. And that's why we're able to show all this, is because that API key, and I'll go into actually what that means and how you get to it, that API key says which instance of the APIs am I going to call, which company, as in who are you, and which instance, and I'll show that to you real quick. But then if we pass company number and customer number, these are the fields that you get back from the API. This is what's returned back to you. So if I come back and I go to one of the biggest ones, this is an API that we've spent a lot of man hours on, which is the customer pricing select API. What we do there is we pass a company number, a product, a warehouse, a customer number, a ship to, and not all of them are required. And the result set that comes back is the price, the PD rec no, or the price discounting record number, what's the rounding, the unit cells. You can read the rest of this yourself, as well as error codes. Those all be popped back, so if you get a good error code. But we get list price and base price, and so we're able to pull the pricing as if you were to go into OEILO. And we call the appropriate calls in SX, and it's very simple. So, but we only have one API that does a pricing select. It brings back one record. We do have one that brings a sales customer pricing list that returns, oops, where am I? Sales customer pricing list that you have multiple, it gives us better performance. The performance now is going to be done at your server, specifically your SX server. Now people ask me at this point, what about licensing? Well, we were a headless environment. It's like one user hitting it and running. There's no overhead associated. We pass the parameters in, we pass the parameters back, and we're done. So it's really only creating the overhead that you see in a typical single user environment. So I need to go to another page now that I want to go to, but I got to hide it because there's some customer specific information that I want to not have pop up automatically. So bear with me here. And there we go. Okay. So now what I want to show you is how do you manage these keys, this concept of a key. Well, under my account, so if I go to here and go back, you see my account is on there. I logged in. That's the part that I didn't want to show you. But I'm going to show you, this is for Grey Wolf Systems. This is going against our demo environment. And I can have multiple keys that get called, that call the APIs. And this key, as you can see, is extremely crypted, so it creates a very high level of security. And then you specify which API server, or which app server, more importantly, which set of APIs instance are you going to call. So in your case, more than likely you're going to have two of them. One is for live, one is for test. So you're going to set up one or multiple API keys that go against it, and you can specify, you don't see this one, I'll talk about the difference between full and light, but you can specify whether it's read, write, or deny. And then this cool part, this is that part that also Forrester said we have to do, is we have to track it so that we put quotas on it, this whole concept of denial of service. So it limits the number of web services calls that can be made per minute. This prevents both our server being hacked into as well as protecting your environment to make sure that you're not getting a whole bunch of calls getting hit against it even when they shouldn't. They may come back with nothing, but you're not getting hacked into by this concept called denial of service. So that's what you go through with the setting up those pieces for that. Now I'm going to show you an SX tester real quick, and then I could say, okay, I'm going to have a tester that you can run to say, hey, is the application having a problem or not? Well, I'm going to pick against, say, this server, and I have all of these APIs available to me, and I can say I want to go and pull sales customer pricing select. I go pull the sales customer, let's just go customer select, continue. It tells me I want to put in a company number and a customer number, and it actually goes out and pulls the information. You can see this. This tester is an adapter in and of itself, but it's a very simple one. It only goes and pushes the information and pulls the information back for you so that you can actually see that things are working. This is the way that we know whether or not the APIs and or the web services are working, or is it the application that's working. That's basically how that all works. The last piece that I want to show you is that we actually have an ability now, and I'm not going to go into more detail on this, that you can see some of our customers. This is on a daily basis. It shows the web services calls and which APIs they're calling. How do we know this? We know it based upon that key that we were using. That API key tells us which customer is calling, and we can actually look at the throughput to make sure we're not having any problems with performance or anything along those lines. So that's a quick overview of how the APIs are architected and used, and I'm sure I created a whole bunch of questions, but I want to move on and talk about, okay, now that you've got this, what does it look like to try to consume it? So that's where we can talk about add-on applications. And I'm not going to show too much on Partner Connect, but I'm going to talk about it. This is our EDI solution. And what Partner Connect allows us to do is, instead of using ETCC or the EDI module or any of those things in SX, which really kind of limit you on what you can do, for example, if you want to pass mother's maiden name, that doesn't work real well. Well, Partner Connect, we use the APIs, and if you use Partner Connect, and that's the only thing you use the APIs for, you only have to have that piece. You don't need the web services, and now we're able to read and write and actually do EDI the way it's supposed to be, both with standard ANSI X12 documents as well as non-ANSI X12 documents, say in a spreadsheet or a flat file or any other kind of file format. We're able to support it. It's all hosted at our system, in our data center, and you don't have to buy any kind of software. What you do is you pay for a setup fee, and then you pay per transaction. The transaction fees can get all the way down to 2 cents per document. We don't charge per kilocharacter. We charge per document. And if you get enough volume with us, we can get it down to 2 cents. But if you have very low volume, no problem. We charge a $60 a month minimum fee, so you can actually get into this very affordable, and it's not an issue of having to buy a whole bunch of software and all the things that go with it. You just basically pay for the setup, you pay for the transactions, and we're ready to rock and roll. And this is all due to the fact that we've got the APIs and the web services in place for it. Now the next one I want to show you is NewSync. And this is our tool that is meant to replace the quick and dirties. It's not meant to really completely replace it per se, because you still have some things sometimes you do with quick and dirties, and I'm going to show you a little bit of that, but I'm going to do it more from an API and web service approach. But we host it, You have a small monthly fee. That small monthly fee is $150 a month, and the only prerequisite you need is that you need the APIs. Once the APIs are installed, you're ready to rock and roll for $100 a month, and it's unlimited uploads. What this do, and I'll show it on a screen here in a minute, is it allows you to take an Excel spreadsheet and upload the information into SX directly all through a browser environment. So let me show you that one real quick. And the reason why I want to show you that one is because what we're going to do, and actually let me go over here real quick. Under NewSync, if you're logged in correctly, you're going to be able to download 3 types of spreadsheets depending upon your functionality. There's one that's just a basic spreadsheet, which is blank, or there's a new tool that we have called the NewSync Extract, and that's the one I'm going to show you because, quite honestly, it becomes a mini data warehouse for you if you wanted to do that, and it's all done because we've got the APIs and web services. And then I'm going to show you the manager real quick on how it goes back into it. So I'm going to pull up the spreadsheet, the NewSync Extract spreadsheet. We have an instructions tab on here, and basically it says that if you go over here, you have a bunch of fields that you can populate. If you look at the comments across the top, we tell you what the field types are. We tell you if it's required or not. So, for example, we go back over to the instructions. The red fields are required for it to happen. So if we look at customer, Kono is required. Customer number is obviously going to be required. So what you could do is you could populate this. You could start typing in 1,000 and customer number 10, and I want to change the name to Joe. Now, I could do that for all of them, but that gets to be a little cumbersome. I may not want to have to do that. I want to pull in information of what already exists. So we have written this tab for this extract that allows you to pick the fields that you want to include in this. So, for example, I'm going to pull in from company number 1, I'm going to pull in all the customers, and I'm going to pull in name, address, what fields do I want to retrieve. I click on retrieve, and it populates it, and you can see it populates it with the information I asked for. I go back over here and say I want to now add customer type. I put an X, click on retrieve, and now the customer type is being populated. Well, let's clear this out a little bit here so that you can also see a little bit more. That I want to do it, say, for company number 1,000. That's going to give me more information, and I can say retrieve, and it brings up more information. But you can see there's a lot of stuff in here, and I may want it where the company name is greater than, say, the letter H. So I'm going to go back over here, and I'm going to say I want the name to be greater than H. I retrieve now, and if you notice, it only brings in those customers. So I can do a query. Now, how does this work? This is the part that I wanted to talk about, the integration part. Yes, the application's cool. We happen to be a little bit biased on that, but it's cool. But how did we do that? Well, here's the Visual Studio. We use VBA. It's writing code behind this spreadsheet, and by the way, this just happens to be an adapter. We do password protect it so that people don't actually go in there and start breaking stuff. And if I go look at now, hang on here, I'm in the wrong place. If I go look at the actual code, and I want to go into here, okay, we're good. Let's see, scroll down. I have code in here that allows me to pull the information that I'm working off of for this. So let's go look at customer. Here is the actual code that makes the call. This is actually a web service call. And I'm going to explain it to you real quick. I go to that URL that I was showing you before, which is the SX Grey Wolf Web Services. I'm going to pass a web service piece with the result. I pass it an API key, a company number, a Kono, and that's what's the code behind this that actually makes it that I can populate this spreadsheet. Now, if you think a little bit bigger picture on this, that means I could write anything myself that I could use it, write it in Visual Basic, I could write it in VC++, any kind of code. I could put it into Access per se, write some code behind it. In this case, this happens to be Visual Basic in an Excel spreadsheet that I can make calls and make up my own applications as time goes on. So that's a real quick overview of an application of how that works. Now I'm starting to get, I know we were talking about time frame on this, so bear with me. I want to pop through a couple more real quick that we've done. We have just announced that we are going to start offering the Magento Community Edition in a hosted environment. We're going to host it at our location, and we're going to have this available to you so that you can use it as a starting point. Because it's based off of the argument of a community edition, which is shareware, it looks something like this. So if I go back over to our website, go to Applications, go to the Magento, and I can actually go to the demo. It's very clean. It's very simple. This is what Magento looks like in an off-the-shelf environment, and then it can bring in pricing and availability all using the web services and the APIs. To show you what we've done already, this is a website that was done. They're using, it's a company called Benpack. They're using our APIs. They are hosting it themselves. This is using the Magento templates to begin with, and it brings in, okay, what kind of options do I want? I can add it to the cart, and so the look and feel could be anything you want, and you can have this whole concept called a login, the other pieces. If you want to look at what it looks like, say, in a very simple, this looks very simple and very similar to what the standard community edition looks like, and you can have all of this very quickly in your environment integrated with SX, all hosted for you for a very small fee on a monthly basis, all based on the APIs. Okay? The next thing I want to show you is we have also just announced a CRM. Now, if you're familiar with Sugar CRM, which has been out there for quite a while, and I actually got to know the owner of Sugar CRM, they had stopped their community edition, their free product, and a company called Sweet CRM brought that into play, and they are now making that available. So we have brought that code over. We are hosting it on our environment, and if you go to our website now, you can play with it a little bit. Go to Sweet CRM, and there's a demo, and if you go back a page, if I go back one here, you're going to see that the login is Will. So if you log in as Will, you're going to see that you now have a CRM tool that is integrated with SX. Very simple, you don't have to host it. It doesn't have to be something that you have to put software on your system, but it's all still integrated with SX so that you can go look at the account information, and you can find, and this is all off-the-shelf Suite CRM. There's no integration at this point for this implementation, but we could go look at history. We could go look at invoices. We could go look at products. We could integrate this almost any way you want, that you could look at sales information by customer, all from a very simple CRM tool. So those are some examples of how APIs can be used and how we've used them for the product set and the applications that we've done. There are a few features that we're looking at. One is we're looking at Spiceworks for potentially help desk. We've heard some people are interested maybe in a help desk environment, even if it's not IT related. We could integrate Spiceworks with it. We're looking at OpenWMS, which is a warehouse management solution that's off-the-shelf shareware. We're looking at Asset Panda for fixed assets. We're looking at integrating with FedEx and UPS. They have APIs available that we could actually use their own parcel management technology to incorporate that with SX, as well as obviously Power BI from a business intelligence perspective. So there's a lot of features that we're looking at this point of using the APIs and web services. So how does this work? What are the requirements? Well, first of all, what is installed? We install Progress code on your SX server. It's a very small amount of code. We're looking into making it that it's self-customer installable. We have not gotten to that point yet. We're very close on that. You have to modify the uBroker properties file. That's done so that we can actually make, it's actually using a Progress app server to do this, and that's all controlled by the uBroker properties file. You have scripts that we've written that then we start the API brokers, and those brokers are the pieces and parts that we saw under the web services and managing it. That's now where you're going to have these brokers started. Those brokers have a port number assigned to them, and more importantly than what ends up happening is you have to open your firewall to our servers, because if you do that now, what happens is we automatically, once it's been installed, we now are able to do updates on a regularly scheduled basis with no human intervention. Let me repeat that, because this was something that we came about a year ago. We now don't have to come back on site remotely, obviously through GoToMeeting or those kinds of things. We no longer have to get back into your server to do updates. It's all done automatically through a process that happens overnight, because now we're able to call those brokers and update the APIs appropriately for whatever we need to do with new changes. So we are able to keep everybody current with a standard set of APIs. That's why we've gone to the subscription-based version of APIs. What's the pricing? Well, you have an activation fee of $400. It's a one-time fee, and installation of 5 to 8 hours. Again, that's a one-time fee. That installation will happen again if you, say, upgrade SX or you move SX to a different server. If we have to reinstall the APIs, not upgrade them, but we have to reinstall them, that installation fee comes back into place. And again, we're working really hard to try to take that installation fee away and have you do it yourself if you want, but we're a little nervous about that because if it's not installed correctly, it could potentially cause some challenges that we aren't ready to deal with at this point. And then for the APIs, so if you want to run, say, NewSync, or you want to run Partner Connect, or you want to run Magento or our Suite CRM, all you need is the API annual subscription of $500. If you, and that's annually, you pay for that. And what that really is that's paying for royalties to Progress. And if you look on our website about the Progress letter, if we didn't do this, you would have to buy the full version of Progress to be legal on this. And this is a contractual agreement we have with Progress to make sure that our APIs are legal, completely up above board and everything. So we've got a great relationship with Progress on that. If you want to run that extract spreadsheet for NewSync, that's the light version of the web services you'll need for $500 a year. If you want to write your own applications, if you want to do your own web storefront, if you want to do your own parcel management, your own fixed assets, and write those applications, which we have several companies that do that, you will then purchase the web services annual subscription full version for $1,500 a year. But if you look at this, this is extremely inexpensive. We don't make a lot of money on this. Where we make our money is in the other applications. Again, in and of themselves, APIs and web services don't do anything. So that's why we don't charge a whole bunch of money for this. But that's where our pricing comes from. So in conclusion, let me summarize what we've gone through. We'll get to the questions and answers here in a minute. I haven't even looked to see if we have some questions out there. But in summary, APIs are the future. Not ESB, not your service bus, not the ODBC approach. APIs are where everything's going. And be more specific, web APIs or web services are able to serve up that technology in a web environment that most of your developers are going to understand or most of third parties are going to understand. And developing your own applications, you can do that today. It's affordable. It's easy. If you talk to some of the people that have been doing this today, I've talked to more developers that have gotten really excited about how we've gone to the web services in the last 12 to 18 months, that they've started doing things that they never thought they could ever do with SX. This exposes all the things you want with SX. Last little piece, like Gary said, yes, we are going to be there as a bronze sponsor. Really excited about being in Orlando, and quite honestly, we have been a sponsor since the first year was offered to us back in 2011. That was a great. I mean, we were obviously involved with SWA and those kinds of things a long time ago, and there was a dark period there, if you will. But ever since we've been able to get back into the fold, we have been very proud of the fact that we've been able to be a sponsor every year for TUG Connects. So hopefully you'll be able to make it there as TUG users. I think you guys can create a whole bunch of networking opportunities for yourself, as well as hopefully have the opportunity to stop by and see us at our booth. I've gotten through it hopefully fast enough. I know I talked really fast. The idea was to hopefully open up questions, get you interested to be able to reach out to me. This is my email, phone number. Take a look at graywolf.com. All of our pricing and information's out there. We are very transparent. We are not like other software companies where everything's negotiated. We have it so that you can actually see what the prices are, and we're trying to make it into a win-win situation for both of us. All right, so questions. Let's see if I have any questions. I do, so bear with me here. Let me get that open so I can see it. Feedback on the line. Sorry about that. Custom fields and custom tables within SX, how is this handled? If they are specifically, we've written this to standard SX. We have to. We don't know what the custom fields are going to be. So if you have custom fields, and not user-defined fields, because we've got a lot of the user-defined fields taken care of, but if you have specific custom fields, we're going to have one of two ways to do this. We're either going to take into account those custom fields in the standard under the code, hide it so that you can stay current on the standard code. But if you have additional functionality and we have to create a different set of DLLs due to the way that the custom fields were created, we then create custom APIs, and we've got that all managed so that we can also update appropriately, keep them separate, and so you end up with a set of custom APIs. That's obviously on a time and materials basis, and what we're going to have to do is make sure that we incorporate the same business logic to you. The nice part about that is if we do it right, we can do it at the head wall so that we can actually have it go through SX naturally as opposed to having to reinvent the logic that was created for some custom code. So hopefully we can actually just hit that at the beginning of where it's needed as opposed to have to rewrite code. But that's all going to be on a case-by-case basis as we go through that. Next question. With the APIs, can you create new records in the SX data tables, i.e. replace the data conversion toolkit? Yes. That's actually done with NewSync. NewSync, for lack of a better word, NewSync and data conversion are direct competitors. We believe that we think that NewSync's a better tool. So when we were looking at that tool, and I can upload it into the SX environment, I actually didn't show you the management tool on that because I was running out of time, and we can take this offline as well, but if we were to have taken that spreadsheet, modified it, and bring it into SX, if the record exists, it will update it. If the record doesn't exist, it will create it. So we're using one set of APIs for one case, which is let's say it's the customer. That would be the sales customer update, if it existed, versus the sales customer insert is a different API that we'd be using for creating a new record for customers. So that's a great question, and we truly believe that the data conversion toolkit is a toolkit. We believe NewSync belongs as a tool for end users. And the best example of that is where you're doing pricing. And let's say you want to update list price in ICSW. Well, you go and you can do that and give that to your buyers so that they can update the pricing information as opposed to having the IT department have to use the tool to make it work. So I'd love to take it offline, but NewSync is absolutely the tool that we believe is light years ahead of everything on that environment. Next question. Are there webinars specifically addressing NewSync and the NewSync functionality? There are some videos on our website that you can see that has it. They're a little old. They're a little out of date. I apologize for that. I will be glad to do a one-on-one webinar if you're interested after you've gone through some of that. And/or I'll be glad to talk to you at TUG Connects on that. And bottom line is, send me an email if you want a one-on-one. We'll be glad to do that for you as well. There are no currently scheduled webinars, but we will probably be doing that in the next 30 to 60 days. We're going to be coming up with a whole bunch of new webinars for NewSync, and especially for the new pieces we've now come up with Magento and with Suite CRM. We're going to have some webinars for those two new solutions that we've got integrating with the APIs. I think I've hit the end of the questions, unless you guys have some more, because just so you guys know, if you have any other questions, I think we're at a point that I've answered them all, so I don't want to leave unless you're thinking, okay, there's a whole bunch more. Okay.
Hey, Rick, I see one person with their hand raised.
Oh, okay.
Angela. So, Angela, I've unmuted you. If you want to participate, you can ask Rick now. And then okay. She just asked a question. So
actually, she asked it in a question, so yeah, if you want to go ahead and mute her back, then I'll answer that question. Let me go to the question that came in just before that. Question, what is the latest version of SX in progress that work with the APIs? I don't know what the latest version is. I know we have customers on 11.2, and I don't know what dot after that. We are on Progress version 11. That was a whole challenge for us, is to go to version 11 of Progress. So we have made all that happen. We do support 10.2B for Progress, and we do support back to 6. Actually, if you get right down to it, we've been doing APIs for so long that we can support all the way back to version 3.2 of SX, but I don't think anybody's on. In all reality, we can support version 6.1 and higher, which is what most of the people have at this point. What is the latest version of SX in progress? Okay, so that was a double question. So I think that answers, I mean, quite honestly, we don't have anybody that has on a version of SX that we cannot support as of yet. Obviously, as Infor comes out with new versions of SX, we have to qualify it and go through that process. But my understanding is we have got the most current version available out there today. Next question is, can you briefly review the light version? Real easy on that one. If you're using, and quite honestly, you have to have the APIs. Let's start there. The APIs are a prerequisite. And the only reason why they are separated out into two products is because of our progress relationship. If we didn't have a progress relationship, we pay a percentage of revenue, and we don't want to have to pay more than we have to, so we break out the APIs, which is for the progress piece, and the web services are our piece, so they're separate. So the APIs you purchase, and then the version of the web services you purchase are based upon the idea of, are you going to be using those web services for a Gray Wolf product, or are you using those web services for your own product, one that you've written yourself or a third party? So if you bring in, I'm going to throw a name out there because they're a partner of ours, if you use Computer Pundits for a website instead of using Magento, because Magento's just not robust enough for you, you go over to Computer Pundits and you want to use Computer Pundits for their website, you're going to need the full version of the web services for that to work. So the only difference between light and full is whether or not it's a Gray Wolf product it's being used for, or if it's a non-Gray Wolf product, which if you bring it in-house would be a non-Gray Wolf product. So hopefully that answers the question. Any other questions? These are great questions, by the way, and I'll be glad to take anything offline that you guys might have. Okay, it looks like we have another one. Do you have more websites that use Magento? Actually, no. This is something new that we just started getting into. We had, in the past, gotten very tightly coupled with companies like Computer Pundits or Eagle or Second Phase, or we've been talking to guys like Unilog and those kinds of things. And so we went down the path of going with that, and we found that Magento was, everybody wanted it. And so we decided to go ahead and host it and work with some companies. The integration I showed you with that other company was actually done with version 1.9. That was forced to us. We did not want to do it, but we did do it in 1.9. Our version of Magento that we're going to be doing is going to be version 2.x. So we're going to start hosting it with a version 2.x of Magento, and that's new. That's something we just announced about 30 days ago. So we don't have a lot of people running on it, mostly because that wasn't the direction we were going, and now we are. Next question, when you said version 11, is that SX version 11? Yes, that is version 11 of SX as well as version 11 of Progress, both. Okay, keep the questions coming. I'll stay as long, and I know, Gary, I know you're going to probably cut me short at some point, but if you again, I'll be glad to answer questions offline for those that want to ask questions. I've still left my contact information up there, so you've got my email. Okay, Gary, I think I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, very good. Thank you very much, everybody. I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you at TUG Connects.
Thank you.